Go live. It says go live. I'm turning off that bouncy music because we don't need it.
We're energized already.
We're energized already. We got this going on. 1 minute till start time. I'll put it on for one more second. There we go. All right. Bouncy music is over. Because we don't need it. We do not need it.
We're energized already.
We are energized already. Exactly. We are energized already. It's 8:30. Welcome. I know we're live because I just heard my voice on my phone checking things. So I know we are live and rolling. Kristen, good morning.
Good morning. It's great to see you.
It's kind of like mid-morning for you, right?
It is. Almost
already had
lunchtime.
2 cups of coffee. I used to live in Spain and they did a second breakfast, which was amazing. So at around 11 o'clock, you'd have your second breakfast and you're like, yay, ready to go on my second breakfast. So it's second breakfast time for some of you, and for others, you are just starting off with your morning coffee, but welcome. It has been a while since we've done these coffee and comms sessions, but the point of this and the reason that we started this was to provide some tips and best practices and support for people on LinkedIn around the things that we do. And Kristen, you and I have talked about this, but we are experts in high stakes communication. That's what we do. And as a result, I talk to a lot of leaders. My passion in high stakes situations, what I see and what I really want to change in the world. And one of the things I really want to change in the world is what I see happening to women. Now, if you're a man on this call, you might be thinking, well, I'm out. They're doing another, thing about women. No, please stay. It's not just women. I do see it more with women, but I see it in these moments where someone has to tell everybody what they're good at. They have to self-promote and they have to say, I'm amazing at, or did you hear I did? This whole idea of thought leadership, Kristen, you're hearing about a lot about it now too. You see people like, what do I post on LinkedIn? And I don't want to be obnoxious with it. Yeah, there are those that are obnoxious with it. But at the same time, if you don't say what you're good at, then no one's going to know what that narrative is. And they're not going to be able to promote you for you, which is what we want. So I'm passionate about that topic. I was talking to one of my clients, Alyssa Merwin, about that, who is a mutual friend. And she said, have you met Kristen? I said, no, I haven't. Have you heard of Linkage? No, I haven't. Well, you've got to meet her. So that's where this whole thing came together. And I'm really excited to have you today. I'm really excited to talk about the work you do at Linkage. So I'll pass it over to you to do a quick introduction. Then I'll share what we're doing today, and then I'll let you take the reins.
Well, thanks so much, Jenna. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so excited when Alyssa said you've got to meet Jenna, because we're both focused in the same area. And I'll just give you a highlight of Linkage. We're focused on changing the face of leadership, meaning both literally, we want to help more women advance in their professions, and figuratively, we want the leaders, both men and women in place today, to become more inclusive and more purposeful leaders. So I am very lucky to get to work at my passion every day and provide this kind of work.
You're so lucky, and you have such great data and such great community building, which we're going to talk about later as you talk about the event that you've got coming up. We're on the other side at Lange International on that coaching consulting side. So we're on the side where we're taking, Kristen would come to me and say, you know what, I want to be on a board, or I really want to advance in my organization. And she would start talking about herself, and then we would provide that feedback on what we see. And one of the things that we'll be talking about is these moments that we have where we get to self-promote. And this was a big topic of conversation for us yesterday. So I was at an event, and Kristen, you and I were talking about this for LinkedIn. It's sponsored by LinkedIn, but taking place during Dreamforce in San Francisco. And the event was called The Future of Sales is Female. Now, we're not just talking about sales right now, but we're talking about some of the trends around what is it that the sales relationship needs right now, which is the ability to build a relationship, to build trust, to listen, to really empathize. So some of those skills. And the fact that a lot of times women are socialized for those skills at a very young age. So what does that mean for the future of sales, and how are women represented in the sales roles? Well, as part of this, we did a lot of research around what does the LinkedIn data share with us about where women are doing well and where they're falling down. And there's two pieces of data I want to share, Kristen, before we go into some of your content.
Sounds good.
So yeah, you've already seen it. I mean, you've had a purview, so you know this. So the first piece of data is men are more comfortable with self-promotion discussing their achievements on social platforms. Do you see this, Kristen?
Definitely. I think men in general, it's just natural language to talk about how good they are at the things that they're working on.
Yeah, and there's a lot of research. I'm sure you've seen the research by Deborah Tannen. It starts at a very young age. And this is not a male bashing moment. I'm just going to say this because it's not even conscious. And I don't think they would have any issue with women doing the same thing. It's not conscious. It's what women believe of themselves when they're doing it. Ooh, it's bragging. Ooh, it doesn't feel good. Ooh, I don't like it. And as a result, we do not spend as much time on these social platforms commenting, boasting, talking about ourselves. Well, so what? What's the impact of that? Visibility. And then another thing that has this impact is connectedness and networking. So that was another thing that was really interesting. Men in sales, and this is a sales related event, are more connected than women, but it's probably not just sales. And you're going to talk about some more data, Kristen, here in a second. But if you think about it, if your job in any way, shape, or form is about your network and connecting, you want to ask yourself, well, how are people going to know where I'm an expert? And how are people going to know I'm out there? How are people going to see me? And if you're holding back because you're thinking, oh, I don't want to, it doesn't feel comfortable, I don't like saying I'm an expert, what impact is that going to have on your network, your quote unquote social capital, and your ability to advance or to sell more? So I thought this data was really interesting as we get into this conversation, Kristen.
And Jenna, it's more than social media, it's everywhere. And if men are doing this, I've seen some data that says they are self-promoting up to 5 times a week to somebody more senior than they are. So if they're constantly telling people how good they are at things, when a job opening comes up, when a promotion's at stake, when a high, really cool deal is happening, they're going to turn to the people who say they're really good at stuff, and women are getting left behind. And so this is a real challenge where we've got to role model and follow what the men are doing because it's working and it's within our power to do it. So we've got to start doing it.
I love that you said that we have to start doing that. And listen, let's not look at it disparagingly and say, ew, icky. Right? Because I mean, and feel free to comment in the comment section if you've ever had that feeling of, ooh, icky. And then you've had the feeling of, well, yeah, how else are you going to know what someone's good at? How else are you going to know that they just succeeded at something unless they tell you?
Right.
So let me move on to, I'll advance the slides for you. So we'll move on to this slide.
That's
next
great.
as you start to build your story.
Okay, and so I'm going to back us up a bit from what are personal skills that women need to focus on, and look at what's the big picture telling us about women in the workplace, because I think it's important for us to know the data. And at Linkage, we do an organizational survey asking women their perception of the places that they work. We do it every year at our Women in Leadership Institute, which is coming up in November. We have about 3,000 women who attend. It's magical to be in a room with 1,200 women. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So here's what we know. We've been asking these questions for many years. You can see this is over the past 5 years, but we've been doing it about 20. What's good is engagement. Women feel like we can contribute to our organizations and our values are aligned with where we're working. So that's great. We're choosing places where we feel like we're making a difference. Here's the problem, is commitment. The question is, if offered a similar job in the next 2 years, would you take it? 50% of women are saying, yeah, I'd take it for a similar job, not even a better job, not even a more senior job. So this is a problem for within our whole organization that organizations need to start working on and fixing, because we have to retain women. We have to help women get advanced in the pipeline to get to those C-suite jobs or the executive or whatever job you want. We also ask a Net Promoter Score question, which is, do you recommend your place of work as a great place for women leaders? Now, Net Promoter Score, if you answer 9 or 10, you're a promoter, 6 or below, you're a detractor. That difference is what we call NPS. NPS that's good starts around 30.
Mm-hmm.
We are not good. We are hovering in the single digits, 5 or 6. The exception of 2020, when everybody was just like clinging on. We just wanted to, get through 2020. And it spiked a little bit, but not that much. We're not doing that well.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets worse as we look at it by level. So on the next slide, Jenna, I think this is particularly relevant for all of us because as we look around and we see women leaving our organizations, it makes us think, well, maybe I shouldn't be here. Or especially our younger generation, as they're entering the workforce, if they look up and don't see senior women, they're not going to stay either. So if you look at this is again the Net Promoter Score. We broke it down by level. And here's what we see is it starts off okay at individual contributor. We're at 50-50 in the workforce with men. It takes us significantly longer to get to that senior manager, that first promotion. We call it the broken rung. This is where men really start to outpace women in the promotions. But then we get to director, senior director, and our NPS goes to 0, meaning just as many women are saying, yeah, it's good here, as they're saying, yeah, it's terrible here. That's bad. And we know from McKinsey's study, the Women in the Workplace study, that for every 1 woman then promoted to VP, 2 are leaving. So this is terrible. We're just seeing the senior ranks of women being wiped out at organizations. And we can't let this keep happening. We have to start thinking about how do we retain women. And it's not for women to solve the problem. It's for organizations to really solve the problem.
Yep. That is absolutely true. Like in this conversation yesterday, one of the things that came up was, okay, what do we do about this? Well, because here we are all getting together. It's a room full of women talking about it. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's
it's always a room full of women talking about it. And the people who are on this call, we've got men and women, and the men are saying, well, what do you want me to do? Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. And I think that's an interesting thing too. We both have to work together. So I'll throw this next slide up for you.
Yeah, and I work a lot with executives, and that's one of the big things, executive action. It rates very lowly on the perception of women and their organizations, and it starts at the top. So we really need to work with executives to become sponsors and to role model what it looks like. But let's pivot to what can we do? What's in our personal control and how we can start to advance faster in our careers. This is a model that Linkage created over 20 years ago, and really through the assessments that we do and the coaching and research, we've developed this model. These are called the hurdles to advancement. They're internal hurdles. There are things that we need to learn how to overcome that help us advance faster. So I'm only going to talk about one of them. We're going to zero in on recognized confidence. What I will say about all of them is that not all of them are a hurdle for all women at all times. And they tend to shift and change as you change careers or get more senior. Something else may be more of a challenge for you than something else. But today, let's talk about recognized confidence and more specifically, self-promotion. So on the next slide, what you see is how do we want to self-promote? How can we do this? I love this image of a cake because everybody loves a cake. Right? It can't be bad, even if it's just one layer of the cake.
Absolutely.
So I work with women all the time to talk about you have to put yourself out there, tell the story of something great that you did, start with the accomplishment. I have it at the bottom, which Jenna said, well, that's weird. But the reason I have it at the bottom is because, look, if you just had one layer of cake is delicious.
It's still delicious. I love how you explain that. Right. So if a minimum you're saying, here's what I did, or here's what I'm great at. That's step.
Right. So it can be a specific accomplishment. It can be, what am I really good at? Talk about how you made the difference, the impact to the organization, and why you're excited about it. Now, here's a couple of things to keep in mind. We package all of this together because we know that there can be that backlash that women can face when they start to self-promote because people aren't used to seeing it. They're used to men doing it. That's natural language for them. It's not necessarily for us. So we package it together. It makes it a more acceptable way to self-promote.
And a critical part in this, which is something that we see at Lange International all the time, is not only the what, which is what we're talking about here, which is the what, like building the story, creating a brag sheet of your accomplishments. Because a lot of times we sit back and we say, I don't know, what am I great at? Fine, ask your friends, ask your
Yeah.
clients, tell why do you continue to hire me? What do you see in me? And then you get that information, you create that brag sheet, then you put it into this statement, and then you pick up your phone, and this is the scary part, and you record yourself saying it. Because even after building something that women and men are proud of, they say, I love what I've just built together as a key message, getting ready for a performance review, an interview, a conversation. They say, so one of the things I really believe that the team and I were effective at building this year. It's like, well, wait a second, hold on. Did you do it? Did the team do it? Do you like what you? So the physical as well as the language that you choose is going to directly impact what you just said on that journey, which is the recognized confidence. Do you believe in your accomplishment? And I just want to point out something interesting about this slide. Kristen, you and I were talking about this. So the CEO of LinkedIn just came out with this really interesting article about the skills of the future. Like hiring is going to be entirely skill based. So what are the skills that are going to be required? And he has a similar map in his article, which is talking about the fact that this linear way to get to a place is no longer going to be what organizations are looking for. They're looking for the people who have taken the winding roads and have a lot more to who they are and what they've done than just a credential. So I think that's interesting, and it supports a lot of the journeys that women have been on in their kind of despair, like curious way of getting to where they wanted to get to.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's two things I want to add to it. One is when we think about self-promotion, there are a lot of women out there who do not self-promote and do not think women should self-promote. And if you have somebody, I had somebody in my office the other day, she just said, well, I just keep my head down and work really hard and assume my leader's going to see it. I said, well, how? How is your leader going to see it? How many people does he manage? And she's like, oh, like 100. Well, 100, how is he going to see your specific fabulousness? And so we have to do a better job of telling people, here's what I did. You were saying this earlier, Jenna. I work with a lot of women and coaching them. They say, my team did this wonderful job. My team did this. That's great. But what did you do? And that's what we're trying to get really specific here about your role and how you made a difference.
I love that we're talking about this. This actually came up in the middle of this panel discussion and keynote last night. And I will tell you, for me, and I'm sure you've done this as well, it took a while for me to be able to walk into a room or get on a call and say, I am an expert in high stakes communication. I have transformed leaders on stage to have more impact and do a lot more amazing things than they would have done otherwise. I'm amazing. I mean, that has taken me a while to learn how to say, and I've practiced it, and now I can own it. We were talking yesterday about the fact that for a lot of women, it is really, I mean, we have been told that that's ugly. And so a mindset shift is to think about, okay, you don't go out there and do that. How are you helping others? How are you helping other women advance and the younger generation feel like they can if you're not out there doing it, if you're not self-promoting, if people don't get to look and see, oh, look at all these role models I have for where I want to go. And that, I think, is what's missing. And it's missing in our ability to network too, because we don't know who to turn to. We don't know where to go. I can't tell you how many times I say, well, who's a role model for you?
Right.
I don't really know one.
The data is really contradictory because it says 80% of women say they're inspired by hearing other women talk about what they're good at and what they've accomplished and all of that. But when we asked women, we just asked women last year, how often or how comfortable are you self-promoting? Only 13% of women said they do it regularly. So there's this disconnect of we want to be inspired by each other, but nobody's doing it. And so we have to figure out ways, how do we become comfortable with it? How do we start to make it natural language so it doesn't feel awkward? And how do we make sure that the things that I'm doing, people know about? That's really what it's about.
Yes. I mean, this slide is key. And we're going to transfer to where can we do this and how can we get more information from you? I want to add one thing, Kristen. What is going to be so important, and if there's one thing I can get to, when you hear another woman do this, you applaud them.
Mm-hmm.
You do not roll your eyes. You do not speak behind their back. You do not say, oh, I can't believe they did that. You applaud them. I think that is one of the biggest things that we can do for women supporting other women is applaud them when they do own and celebrate their accomplishments.
I think that's a great way to do it. And I'll give just one other tactic. Let's say you're in a meeting together and you know that Jenna's great at communications and we're talking about communications. I can help amplify Jenna and say, I know Jenna's fabulous at communications. Let's bring her into this conversation. What do you have to say? Let's make sure that we're supporting each other in that way too.
Yeah, and it has this mushroom effect too, because other people hear you do that and say, oh, I'm going to do that too.
Yeah.
Another place where you can learn more about this is, ta-da.
Oh, thank you so much. This is our Women in Leadership Institute. It is a multi-day immersive learning event. It's fabulous. Like I said, we'll have, I think, 1,400 women live this year, and we'll have another group virtually, so you can attend live or virtually, whatever fits your time together. It is such a special time to be with all these women really thinking about and focused on how do we advance in our organizations. I will say we have the traditional, speakers on the main stage. We have small group. Skill building. The secret sauce is what we call our learning teams. You're in a 10 to 15 person group with an executive coach every day for 2 hours, working together to think about, what did I learn? What can I apply? What can I put into my life? What are my goals moving forward? It's a wonderful event. And we wanted to give you an offer. If you can make it, we'd love to see you there, whether in person or virtually.
So grab this QR code. There you've got Kristen's information. And as you walk off into your day or into your evening, remember these things. Email your boss something great you did this week. Do it, do it, do it, do it. Record yourself delivering your cake accomplished, and then reach out to Kristen. Join this community so you can get out there and help other people when they see you self-promote. Thank you all for joining. Have a wonderful day.
Bye. Have a great day. Thanks for having me.